Hi everyone, and welcome to Atolo's Lobby Talks. My name's James Lemon, the founder of Atolo, and it is my absolute honor to welcome you to another one of our industry chats. We love to meet industry leaders from right around the wonderful world of hospitality, whether that be hotels, restaurants, events, or the supply chain and supporting ecosystem. We try and get them to tell their stories, tell us what it's like really behind the curtain. All part of Atolo's mission to champion hospitality as a wonderful career and a place where people can really unlock their potential. I can't have this episode without mentioning Atolo's new mentoring pledge. We are running a kind of public-private partnership with government to try and find mentors and organizations around the industry that will pledge their time for mentoring over the next year or two. You can join the discussion at myatolo.com/mentors. Love to help you find out more about Atolo, more about our mentoring, and of course, more about our mentoring pledge. But I've been really looking forward to this Lobby Talks for a while. We're going to be chatting with Martin Traynor, who runs the small business element of the Cabinet Office. You might think, why on earth are we chatting to senior politicians on a hospitality show? Well, without giving too much away, Martin has run hotels in the past, and I think just a fantastic transition from the world of hotels to government. So we wanted to hear your story, Martin. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be here.
Great to have you here. Great to have you here. Look, we aren't meeting on an online platform because that would be so 2020. We're back to real world events. So all of our guests take us to a real world lobby. And so we'd love to hear more. What lobby have you taken us to? Where are we meeting today, Martin?
Okay, well, this is the centre, the round courtyard in One Horse Guards Road, which is where the Treasury is based. The reason I've put that as a particular lobby, that is where the office is and where I'm based. But I have to say I've only been there once since the 23rd of March 2019, but obviously because of COVID. But again, this is an interesting building, and many of you will recognise it because it's the area that James Bond comes and lands his helicopter. So you'll often see that one on the film set. But with it being the home of the Treasury, make no mistake, this is where all the power is.
Yeah, fantastic. Where the power is, and it's funny, we always talk about hotel lobbies as being this hubbub of energy, and so much actually happening behind the scenes, behind the curtain. Heaven forbid the amount of activity going on behind the scenes in this particular lobby, but no, all good. Well, look, we'll virtually be there. We'll be there in spirit, and what would be our drink of choice in a lobby as grand as this one?
Oh my goodness! Well, it would just have to be champagne, wouldn't it?
Okay, fair enough. I thought you might say non-alcoholic. We'll just stick with a coffee or a tea. But
I'm a hotelier.
You
No
set the rules. You set the rules on this one, Martin. Lovely. Well, look, welcome to the show. Really excited to have a kind of whistle-stop tour through your hospitality past and your highs and lows. And let's start with that. I'd love to kind of get to know you better. We set all our guests the challenge of your career in 60 seconds. Do you think you can outline your career in that time?
Yeah, I can. It's certainly a very varied one. First 3 years, I did my HND in hotel and institutional management in Cardiff. I then moved and joined Ladbroke Hotels, and we often associate Ladbroke with gambling as opposed to hotels, but in those days they had 47 hotels. I went to Basingstoke, where we turned a field into a hotel, and that was a fascinating exercise. After that, I moved up to Carlisle and was deputy manager of a hotel there. Then I moved down to London, where I joined Embassy Hotels. I did another 4 appointments around the UK, 3 as general manager. The last hotel I managed was the Grand in Leicester. And from there, I moved, this is in 2001, to become the chief executive of Leicestershire Chamber of Commerce. And people often used to say to me, how did you manage to make that transition? Well, to run a hotel, you need 2 things, communication skills and organizational skills. To run a Chamber of Commerce, you need organizational skills because the Chamber used to run 100 events a year, and communication skills because you had to communicate members' views to government. Up until 2014, I then led the merger between Leicester, Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire to create East Midlands Chamber. After that, I took on what one would describe now as a portfolio career. I did 6 years on the government's Regulatory Policy Committee. I've been deputy chairman of a large hospital trust in Leicestershire, £1 billion a year turnover, 16,000 staff. That was certainly interesting. I've also chaired a number of leisure companies here in Leicester and Leicestershire. And in 2019, I joined the Cabinet Office as the Small Business Crown Representative. Now, that's an incredibly impressive title. It might not be overly powerful, but I've learnt one thing over the years. It always gets you a good table in a restaurant. Primarily what I'm doing in central government is trying to open up procurement to small businesses. The government spends the best part of £60 billion a year on goods and services. And the government's aspiration is that for every £3 we spend, we want £1 spent with SMEs. And in fairness, we do buy a lot of hotel accommodation, so we're very much into that market. If you look at what the public sector spends in the UK, it's 292 billion a year. It's actually 14% of GDP. So there's a huge opportunity there for small businesses up and down the country. So that really is now the as one would describe as the day job. Sorry, that probably wasn't 2 minutes, because a very varied career.
I think that's very, 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 very varied. You've done a huge amount of stuff, which is brilliant. Yeah. And I think really important that we recognise hospitality, just how important it is in the UK. I know it's been identified as a kind of priority industry really for the recovery. So fantastic to have someone with such a stellar hospitality career right at the heart of government championing the cause. Thank you for that. So fantastic. Well, look, we'll definitely come back to some of your experiences and your lessons over the course of the next 20 minutes or so. But our next section's called Good Day, Bad Day. And it's just a really nice chance for people to see some kind of micro moments in people's careers. Yep. Maybe, Martin, you could take us through your best and worst days.
Well, I'm going to kick off with a bad day because it's very much hospitality related. When I was food and beverage manager at the Crown and Mitre Hotel in Carlisle, that was very much what we would describe as the old lady of town, a big banqueting house. We had a ballroom there for 400 people, top table and sprigs as it was in those days. And, fascinating hotel, really enjoyable place to work at. Anyway, we had a very big wedding, 400 booked for the Saturday. And on the Friday night, the bride and groom came in, lovely couple, and they paid for the wedding the next day. And it was £10,000 in £5 notes. And I suddenly thought, oh my God, I know what this is. And believe it or not, it was actually a gypsy wedding. Now, it's probably fair to say I've never seen a 10-tier wedding cake before. I actually had to get a stainless steel table out the kitchen to be able to support the sheer weight of it. Well, I can tell you the day didn't get much better because, talk about a rowdy crowd. We had kids running up and down the sprigs, kicking the glasses over. We had staff assaulted. We had damage all over the hotel. But the interesting thing, the head of the family came in on the Monday morning, gave us a wad of cash, which paid for any of the damage. But I have to say, it was probably the most harrowing occasion I think I've ever had. And
it sounds absolutely intense and slightly bewildering. Yeah. I suppose how did you navigate the team through that? They probably experienced nothing like it either.
It took a lot of persuasion to get the waitresses to go back into the room, I can tell you. But of course the thing is their way of thinking was, we'll just throw money at it. So here's a load of cash. So I think the staff did quite well out of it financially, but I don't think we'd ever want to do one again.
No, probably for the best. Goodness me. And how about your best day?
Well, I have to say the best day. When I was running the chamber, I've been very fortunate that I've been involved in lots of different projects in and around the East Midlands. I was a director when we set up the National Space Centre. I was one of the founding directors of Conkers, which is a visitor attraction over in northeast Leicestershire. And in recognition, we had the Queen come for the can't remember which jubilee it was, but she came for I think it was 40th years, I think, and I was delighted that I was presented to the Queen on the day. And that is an incredible experience. Needless to say, everybody manages to turn into some sort of version of Uriah Heep, and I was included in that. I had a fascinating conversation with the Queen, and somebody actually said to me, "Well, what did you say to her?" And I tell you what, I can't remember. I think I was that phased, but it was interesting because she was introduced to my wife as well, and I think for the first time in her life she was actually quiet. So it was quite an interesting day. But it's one of those sort of things you put down as a special moment.
Yeah, I'm sure. No, that sounds absolutely amazing, Martin. And it's funny, isn't it? Because we've chatted a bit about before. The Queen's life is hospitality. Right? It's entertaining people, it's visiting people, it's meeting and greeting. But no, that's brilliant. I'd love to explore your kind of time at the Chamber of Commerce. It sounds really varied. For those that don't know, I suppose, what is the remit of the Chamber of Commerce? Because it sounds like a hospitality business. It's events. It's almost like a members club. It'd be great to hear a bit more about that.
Well, Chambers of Commerce are very much, they're a membership organisation, and it's where members pay into this club or organisation, and the main purpose of the chamber is to lobby on behalf of the business community. Right. So if there are issues or things, I used to speak to government ministers, local council leaders about issues that businesses had. So if you like, we collate all the views of businesses, then we make representation. But other things that chambers do, of course, is they put on various events. And we used to do about 100 a year, and that would vary from a networking event for 100 people right through to maybe a seminar on patenting or something like that. But of course, in doing that, we were great purchasers of hotel suites and accommodation.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And I suppose as the world's changing rapidly around us in the kind of the recovery in the next couple of years as we think about younger people entering the workforce. What kind of roles is the Chamber of Commerce going to play? And I suppose if people are new into industry, how might they engage with that kind of an organisation?
Yeah, and again, I think chambers play an important part of understanding how business works and what the issues are. And I've always said people within the public sector never intentionally go out of the way to harm business, but sometimes it's the law of unintentional consequences. Mm-hmm. And when government is thinking about creating policy or legislating, things like chambers of commerce are very useful consultees because they're able to gauge what the implications are. And sometimes it can be, it looks very straightforward from the Westminster bubble. But actually, when you suddenly realize, well, that's the third or fourth implication of what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we don't see it. And that's where chambers are very good at talking to the businesses that actually will be impacted. But it's quite an interesting change because, I did a meet the buyer event with the Department of Transport before Christmas, and traditionally we'd have hired a hotel suite somewhere. We had a whole range of buyers. Then we would have did a little bit about what we're trying to sell, then we do meeting. We did an online one, and there were over 1,000 SMEs on it, which shocked us. But it was the old sort of thing. Actually, small businesses quite like that because, instead of spending an hour and a half traveling somewhere, then spending a couple of hours with us and then an hour and a half traveling back, that's a day at the business. That's a significant commitment to a small business. Now, the negative side is for the hotel industry is that certainly we're probably going to start doing more of these online events because actually we can get to an awful lot more businesses and in the nicest possible way, a lot more cheaply than we can in the traditional way. So, but inevitably, there is still a place for face-to-face. In my time, I've taken out trade missions to India. I've done trade missions to China. Very culturally, very, very different. But the thing they've got in common, they like to see the whites of your eyes before they do business with you.
No, it makes sense. So if people are currently building events companies, restaurants, hotels, the recommendation would be kind of plug yourself into your Chamber of Commerce because it may well be that there's some really important discussions being had. And it feels like with hospitality being such a priority industry for the UK, we need to do everything we can to make our voices heard, right?
Yeah, and you will find that within Chambers of Commerce there are quite a lot of hotels that will be members, etc., etc. So the hospitality side does engage with chambers, which is very positive.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Well, look, lovely. Like, our next section is called Last Day on Earth. And it's a great chance to celebrate just the best
Yeah.
of hospitality and restaurants and events without being too morbid that it might be your very last one. But Martin, maybe you could kind of take us through, if the world were ending tomorrow, where would you stay?
Well, I think without a shadow of a doubt, it would be the Savoy Hotel in London. It is an absolutely lovely hotel. And there's an old saying, you can't buy class. And the Savoy has class. And I think it is a super hotel. So if I was going to have that stay, I'd like to have one of the suites overlooking the Thames.
Perfect. And what is it about the Savoy, as people think about service and people think about delivering a great experience? What is it about the Savoy for you that gets it right?
I think it's got an atmosphere of grandeur. And no disrespect to the people that refurbished the Dorchester, they put so much gold in there, it made it gory. And sometimes that you can go over the top. The Savoy just has that little bit of class. And the staff, of course, they're absolutely superb.
Yeah, no, I think the amount of investment they make in making sure their staff are delivering great service and thinking very customer first, I think is absolutely fab. No, they've really got it right. Lovely. And how about kind of food wise? Is there a restaurant that would definitely be your final choice?
Again, I would probably eat at the Savoy, but for the meal wise, I have thought about this when I thought, well, I was going to have my final meal. I'd like to have some smoked salmon, washed down with saint a nice piece of beef Wellington, Chateau Talbot 63. That would go down well. And one of an old favourite that we don't very often do these days is baked Alaska. But of course, if you're going to have baked Alaska, you've got to have a glass of Muscat de Ronde de Venise.
Love
so
it. You've really thought about your food pairings here, haven't you?
That's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. If you're going to go out, you're going to go out with a bang.
Yeah, fantastic. Look, hey, beef Wellington's always on my Christmas list, somewhere alongside the turkey the day before, the day after. I think it's an absolute classic. Well, how did baked Alaska make the list? I'm very curious as to what's
it was something we used to make at college, and I've always loved it. We just don't do it now, and it's a shame. You very rarely see it on a menu.
Yeah, it's funny, these desserts kind of go in and out of fashion, doesn't it? But it's nice to see in the British pub scene a lot of these classic puddings are making a comeback, which is absolutely fab. No, that's great. And is there an event that captures your heart, Martin? Is there a last event you'd have?
Well, as you probably gathered, I was brought up in South Wales, so rugby's in the bloodstream. So I think for me, it would have to be a rugby match at the Principality Stadium, and hopefully one where the Wales team were going to win the Grand Slam.
Yeah, well, who knows, right? It's a lottery. There's certainly a lot of fantastic rugby being played at the moment, which is brilliant. Makes for great watching, and that is one of the most intense stadiums in the world, isn't it? Just with the seats always feeling like they come over the pitch. And I think what I love about stadiums like that, right in the heart of the city, is it does mean that hospitality is at the heart of it. People at restaurants and bars before and afterwards. It really creates this kind of carnival event around Cardiff, which is great. You don't get that, I think, in a lot of stadiums. Unfortunately, Scotland doesn't have it.
I think you're right. I think because of the location of being right in the centre of Cardiff, it's part of the city. And in fairness to the people that do the catering operation there, they get through the crowds very efficiently. I'm a season ticket holder here at Leicester Tigers, and halftime drinks are a pain. And I've often said to them, go down to Cardiff and look at how to do it.
Yeah. It's really interesting to see. A lot of people we chat to, they actually start their hospitality careers in corporate hospitality like that. I wonder if there's blending of kind of, I wish I could actually, play for that sports team, right? I wish I could play for Spurs or play for the Leicester Tigers, but I can't. So maybe the best I could do is kind of work there on a Saturday. But it's a great introduction. Maybe people aren't quite on their best behavior for these events, but it's not a bad place to learn those skills of
absolutely. But it's the old sort of thing from when I started out to where we are now. It's very, very different because goodness me, I was trained on silver service and Gueridon service, and those are things from the past. But we all move on. But again, it's a different skill level now, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, absolutely. Lovely. Really, well, fantastic. Some great choices there. I love it. Love the focus on UK hospitality as well, which is fab. But Martin, I definitely want to spend a bit of time with you on our last section, the guest book. obviously when you leave a venue, it's great to kind of leave a few notes. Now, typically we do that online, but it's always been such a part of hospitality, sharing your wisdom with the next guest. What advice would you share with people thinking about hospitality careers today?
Well, I think hospitality is a great career, and it's underestimated. I spent over 20 years in hotels, and I don't regret a day of it. I had a really, really good time, and I think you meet some fantastic people. And that's I think half the thing about hospitality. But I decided I wanted to do other things, and again obviously moved from running hotels over to Chamber of Commerce, and now obviously doing some work here in central government. But the interesting thing is you look forward, and they say the vast majority of people now will have 3 careers. And I can remember when I was at school, I think the careers teacher said to us, "Oh, you need to think about banking, job for life." Well, they were wrong on that one. But regardless of that, I think we need to do more to promote hospitality. I think government has a role to do more to promote hospitality, but the industry itself needs to do it. And I'm very, very conscious that, when we do careers evenings at schools and things like that, rarely do we see anybody from the hospitality sector. And I think we need to do a little bit more about promoting and actually talk about some of the great jobs out there. The good thing about television at the moment, there are loads and loads of cookery programs, and I think a lot of kids now are getting quite interested in it. But again, it's being able to communicate. Actually, you might not necessarily want to run your own restaurant, but you could be a perfectly competent chef in a large restaurant, etc., etc. So I think there's a story that we're not telling.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think especially in the world of chefing, it's a really challenging one, isn't it? Because actually, I could argue the opposite, which is that this focus on celebrity chefs is actually potentially negative to some of these ideas. And actually, being a great chef is part of being a great team.
Yeah.
But I think we're having a lot of chats with Atollo at the moment around actually what is the future of bringing people back to those industries. And for me, it's also about a bit of freedom. I go to hotels like the Pig Hotel, sort of really passionate about making their chefs' lives varied. Not only allowing them to mix up the menus, but really think about suppliers and locally sourcing food. Hopefully, the days of saying, 12 hours a day, you're going to be making exactly the same menu 365 days a year. Like that's going to be really hard to inspire people to do that kind of roles, especially as you say, they may want to think about being quite prominent on social media and allowing chefs a bit of creative time, I think is true. And heaven forbid that may be true in all roles in the industry. Maybe we do need to find a way to allow people to work on small projects and think about sustainability or staffing or technology. Some of these things that we know we could be better at as an industry, we could probably give to people to work on and make their job more interesting.
And again, I think it's dealing with the long hours culture, because I can remember being a trainee manager and assistant manager, and 100 hours wasn't uncommon. Thank goodness we don't do things like that anymore. But again, I think it's thinking about how we staff our operations going forward. And I've seen quite a trend now in London where they're not necessarily opening on a Sunday and a Monday, so they're running Tuesday through to Saturday. They found that they can staff it that way. People are not working excessive shifts. And I think there's an element now, I think, of readjustment within the industry. I often talk to Robert over at the Institute of Hospitality, and we see, interesting trends coming through. And I think we just have to adapt to that.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. I mean, we work with a lot of different universities, and they're saying there's obviously been a real challenge of course numbers being down, but actually just the kind of roles that people want to do afterwards are really different. I think people are probably more recognize that they can take a bit more control of their careers and think about things like their mental health. And so we need to find a way, especially in those early careers roles that are a little bit more manual, they are harder work. It's about building that flexibility in, isn't it? Perhaps shorter shifts, which means as an industry, we probably need to change our ways of working, right? Slightly more tech-led, allowing people to kind of book time on shifts, book their time off, and build their time with their employer around other things going on in their lives a bit more. But it's a change that'll take time, I think.
I think that's right. I'm a great supporter of apprenticeships,
Mhm.
and I think we as an industry probably should do more in the field of apprenticeships. And it's interesting because some people have often say to me, "Well, why did you do an HND as opposed to a degree?" Well, 40 odd years ago, the industry preferred an HND because there was a practical element to the course.
Yeah.
Whereas the degrees in those times were 3 years theoretical. So a lot of the companies said, well, actually, we prefer the HND. And that was the reason that I did it as opposed to the degree. And I think, again, it's that hands-on experience. And again, I can remember as a training manager, it was a program with so many months in each of the departments. Now, it didn't mean you were a specialist in any of the departments. It just meant that you knew how they worked and how they operated. And again, that would then sort of accelerate you towards, senior management.
Mm. And after you'd finished your studies, how did you think about those next few roles? Again, kind of in terms of imparting some advice, perhaps. How did you think about choosing the right thing to build up a varied skill set, or were you a bit more,
Yeah.
with a bit more luck?
If I was totally honest with you, there's an element of luck in it because, when you're coming out of college, you apply for various management training schemes. Ladbroke was quite an interesting one, because nobody really associated Ladbrokes with hotels in those days, even though they ended up buying Hilton. And again, it looked interesting, and there was this opportunity to work somewhere which was effectively a field and then to build a hotel. And I thought to myself, well, actually, that's probably once in a lifetime to be able to go from field to hotel. So that's how I ended up in that way. But inevitably, you have the opportunity to move around. It's a lot easier, of course, when you're single. Because you live out of a suitcase sort of thing, and you move around the country. I think I moved 4 times in 3 years, but
Wow.
it's a little bit more difficult when family come along.
Yeah, no, to get it out of the way nice and early, I suppose, is the advice there. And what would be your advice to someone who is thinking about hospitality as a career now? I guess what are some of those words of wisdom that will just keep them straight for those first couple of years?
Well, it's the old sort of thing. What you need to do in those early years is build up your experience. And interestingly, when we were doing interviews 20 years ago, you'd look at somebody's CV and they'd done 3 years here, 2 years there, 1 year there. You would regard them as unreliable. Now, the interesting thing is, you look at a CV now, and people see people that have been places for 10 years and so they can't be ambitious. They've not moved on, etc. And we actually now look for people that got an experience in a variety of different places. And I actually think that's quite positive. Okay, it can be annoying from staff turnover point of view, but if you work in a variety of places, you will pick up all sorts of skills from those various places. And actually, when you then get your own management position, you can build on what you've learned over the years.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so true, Martin. I think the other thing we found with Atollo is that having a great mentor gives you a real chance to label those experiences and potentially seek out the next one as well. So a lot of people are working flat out, not necessarily taking time to pause to think, am I learning the right stuff? Do I know how to sell it on a CV? Am I conscious what I'm going to be doing next? So I think, sometimes you can get it from your boss, and that's great. But if you're not getting that development and inspiration from your boss, having an external mentor can often be a way of saying, you know what, actually, I will do this for another 6 months because I am learning when I look at it, in the cold light of day. So that's fabulous. Look, Martin, unfortunately, we've reached the end of our time together. It's kind of time for the checkout, as it were. But I can't thank you enough for spending a bit of time with us today. I'm sure you're off to some really interesting meetings for the rest of your time and time in London. But it's been absolutely fab to have you share a little bit of your story with us and your momentum. So thanks very much. It's been great.
Yep, pleasure, and enjoyed our chat.
Lovely. And for those of you watching and listening, obviously, please do head over to Atollo at myatollo.com. We're always excited to welcome new members and give you access to mentors like Martin and others from right around the industry. We're back again next week with Joe Pettigrew from Yotel. We're going to be talking all things strategy and growth and what it's like to work at the front of a fast-growing consumer brand. Again, don't forget, we have our mentoring pledge. Head to myatollo.com hotelier.com/mentors and find out how Atolo is building the world's largest hospitality mentoring pledge and share your time with us. So one more time, a big thank you to Martin for sharing his journey with us, and look forward to seeing you all next week. Thanks very much and stay safe. Bye-bye.